Hi guys, welcome into the channel. This week, next week, we're talking 2016 American election. I know that could make many of us sad, but I'm wearing the red and it kind of means repetitive, and you can kind of just laugh at the fact that I've only got like 4 or 5 shirts that I ever wear on this channel. Think of that. Don't think about the state of modern American politics. So, this is what we're going to do for this week and for next week. I, being the realist, am going to put forward an objective viewpoint of both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put forward a view for each candidate of the best reasons why you should vote for Donald Trump and the best reasons why you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. The same thing with Hillary Clinton. Now this week is probably going to be a little bit longer than our normal 7 minutes, but come on, it's Donald Trump and I've only had one video I'm going to be able to make for him before the election even happens, so give me a little slack. So if you need to take a little break halfway through, if you need to go swim in the creek, if you need to go chop some wood, if you need to go write some poetry, do what you need to do, but come back and resume your objective quality, because you guys are watching me, which means I know you guys are objective, which means I know you guys value good media consumption. So to begin, I just want to lay my cards out on the table. I am an American. I have already voted absentee. You send it away when you're not in the States because I'm in the UK. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for Gary Johnson. I'm voting for some candidate you've never heard of before, some third-party candidate that you don't know about. So I've got no skin in the game here, so I can be objective on either side. The second thing I want to say is I am so sorry, guys, to the world. In a country that has 320 million people, the best we could do was Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I'm telling you, I know if you haven't been there, you might not be able to believe me, but believe me, there actually are a lot of good Americans. I've met them. I am one. I hope. I might not be one, but there are some. I know some. I'm related to some really good Americans. Now, the third thing to say is I'm making these videos for sort of an international audience, right? And I think, at least the general feeling I have, is that most people internationally, particularly internationally in the West, don't really understand the broad support that Donald Trump has. They're kind of confused. And what I want to do, particularly in this video, is sort of give you guys a reason, or give you guys a framework for why rational, very reasonable, very good people want to vote for Donald Trump, right? And it's not because they're all narcissistic racists, right? They actually might have some good reasons. So I want to present that to you. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them by any means. It just means I want you guys to understand where they're coming from. So the first thing I want to do is give you guys reasons why Donald Trump supporters support Donald Trump, right? And this is not the same as realist reasons why you would vote for Donald Trump, although there's some can overlap, but I wanted to give you guys just a general conception of why Donald Trump supporters, are so passionate about him. But before we even do that, it's really important, because I don't think you're going to be able to understand where a lot of these motivations are coming from if you don't understand sort of the base level political philosophy of Republicans. So quickly, most Republicans have a few core beliefs, right? And the first one of these, the sort of foundational belief, is that liberty, my ability as an individual to say what I want, to do what I want, to reap the benefits from my labor and my property, is the most prioritized, or the most important sort of principle in governance, right? And so there's a lot of different principles you can look to. You can look to liberty, you can look to equality, an egalitarian society, you can look for sort of a global cosmopolitan value, but for Republicans, it's liberty. So alongside this core belief of liberty is this idea that government should be limited as much as possible. So why is this? Well, the first reason is Republicans see sort of any encroachment or any sort of enlargement of government by its very nature to be taking away the liberty of its subject, right? So the more the government grows, the less power, the less freedom that individual citizens have to exercise their liberties, right? The second reason is Republicans generally believe that the bureaucracy of the government is actually much less efficient, is actually much worse at distributing resources, at getting things done, at providing services for the community, right? So Republicans would always say, look, the private sector is always more efficient. It's always better to provide goods and services for society. The government is inefficient, it's bureaucratic, it's wasteful. So these are sort of the core foundations of many Republicans, and you have to understand that in order to understand Donald Trump. And I say this because I think in America, I think more than anywhere, I've seen a larger group of the population be wedded to this belief than I've seen in, say, New Zealand or the UK, where more people sort of hold equality and liberty as sort of, I guess, more or less equal, whereas in the States, and particularly with Republicans, you get sort of liberty is definitely sort of above equality. So that's why. It's really important you understand this, or else you won't be able to understand why people are motivated to vote for Donald Trump. So with that, let's get to the reasons why supporters of Donald Trump support him. And the first reason is this: Trump is not a career politician. And so there's this massive perception, particularly within the Republican, but also within the Democratic Party, that career politicians are sort of part and parcel of a corrupt political system, right? So they think people who have been in politics their whole lives, particularly on the Republican side, people who have been in politics their whole lives have never had the blessing of enjoying the efficiency of the private sector, and they've been so wedded to the political system that they actually have sort of a stake in keeping it the way it is, because they benefit a lot. They get a lot of power from being in sort of the political elite. And so they see corruption, they see politicians in bed with sort of special interest groups and financial donors. I mean, the list goes on and on for why people think that career politicians contribute to the corrupt American system. But people see, Donald Trump supporters see Donald Trump as someone who's completely not a career politician, right? He's never held public office. They see that as an asset. They see that as something they like because they think he can come in and bring a new perspective. He's not sort of blinded by the reality or blinded by the power structures and the corrupt system of American governance. The second reason, and it's related to the first, is this: Donald Trump isn't bought and paid for, right? Because Donald Trump is sort of a self-made businessman, he doesn't have to go around and sort of elicit a bunch of money from different corporate or private sponsors. So he's not wedded to the Koch brothers, or he's not wedded to Wall Street, or he's not wedded to defense industries, or, pick and choose whatever interest group or lobbying group you want. The perception is Donald Trump doesn't have to actually bow to their interests when he gets into office, because he's not obligated to say certain things to get their funding. He's free to say and do whatever he wants. And the third reason why Donald Trump supporters are supporting him is, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, he's a businessman, right? He's a self-made businessman, business tycoon. He's got an empire, and people see that and they think, here's a guy who can who's sort of a shining emblem of the efficiency and of the productivity of the private sector. Here's someone who can take that efficiency and come into government, into the bureaucratic structures, and sort of infiltrate the government bureaucracy with that efficiency. He's going to make government efficient. He's going to cut the red tape. He's going to be able to do things, get things done that no one has, and he's going to bring a sort of private sector mentality into the slow, bureaucratic public sector. And people love that about him. Fourth reason is he's not a part of the Republican establishment. Don't have a lot of time to talk about this, but basically a lot of Republicans are fed up with the Republican establishment. They're sick of promises they see as not being fulfilled. They're sick of spineless Republican politicians. They see Donald Trump as someone who will stand for their principles and for their policy. The fifth reason why Donald Trump supporters love Donald Trump and support him is this: most Republicans, and definitely almost all Donald Trump supporters, absolutely hate Hillary Clinton. And this goes far beyond just your regular, I'm a part of this party and I don't really like that leader of that other political party. I mean, this is like a deep-seated loathing in your soul. I mean, it's so deep-seated, the way people talk about her, the way people literally, you can see it on their faces when they talk about her. They hate Hillary Clinton. And so the only other viable option is Donald Trump. The sixth and final reason is his stance on immigration, right? And so this kind of goes back to the anger against the Republican establishment. So many Republicans have seen promises of curtailing immigration or of doing things about illegal immigration into the United States that have not been fulfilled. And they see Donald Trump coming in with his efficiency, with his ability to get things done and say, hey, look, you've had all these empty promises. They haven't been fulfilled. I'm the guy who can come in here and we're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall, and that physical barrier will stop illegal immigrants from coming into the country. And, oh, by the way, we'll deport the 11 million illegal immigrants who are here too. Now, viability of these solutions to the side, people see that as, okay, this is a guy who's actually going to do what he says he's going to do. And people take that as, they like that. They like that, okay, here's a guy we actually believe he's going to do what he's going to say, instead of all these other Republican establishment, politicians like Rubio, Jeb Bush, who have promised us this for so long but haven't delivered. Simply put, the reason why Trump supporters love Trump so much is because he talks to people like your friends talk to you at a bar, right? It's not dressed up in political speech. It's not like every word is measured for how people are going to respond and how the press is going to respond. Trump says it like it is, and people like that. People think that's a breath of fresh air. They're so sick of having these polished politicians. I mean, particularly if you listen to Obama when he does a speech, he takes such long pauses and thinks about every single specific word that he says. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It might be a good thing that the President of the United States actually sits and thinks about what he's going to say. But people also see that, and I can definitely understand this argument, that everything is dressed in politics. Everything is dressed to be politically correct. Everything is dressed to not be offensive. And people see Trump as a breath of fresh air, like, oh, finally someone who says what I've been thinking, or says sort of, or is addressing the issues that I want to be addressed, but I feel like I've been afraid to say it because I've been labeled a racist or whatever, right? And so people like that. They respect that about Donald Trump. So those are the reasons why Donald Trump supporters support him. Here are some reasons that the Realist thinks are good reasons for voting for Donald Trump. So the first reason is this. Donald Trump, throughout his campaign, has been apt to question America's foreign policy commitments. It's good to have that discussion, and I'm actually glad that he's brought that to the forefront instead of just, oh, it's assumed that basically the American military will be the security structure of the entire world. Maybe it shouldn't be like that, and maybe Donald Trump bringing that up is a good thing. The second reason the Realist thinks you should vote for him is if you have that fundamental sort of priority of liberty, of individual liberty, of being able to do the things you want to do, then I do think Trump is probably your preferable candidate to Hillary Clinton, right? Hillary Clinton is Democratic. Democrats are usually much more apt to spend more in government, to have more government programs. And so if your philosophical bent is towards liberty, then above all else, then you probably definitely would prefer, on most accounts, Trump to Clinton. And I could see that. I could understand why someone would want to vote for Trump because of the liberty principle over Hillary Clinton. The third reason the Realist would give for why you should vote for Donald Trump, or what is a good reason for voting for Donald Trump, is the Supreme Court, right? So the Supreme Court, there's 9 justices. It's the highest judiciary body in America. And it's not just one size fits all when it comes to judges. There are more conservative leaning judges. There are definitely more liberal leaning judges. And so if you're a conservative or you're a Republican and you think that the Supreme Court, which is a good thought to have, is so vitally important to your interests, you might hate everything else about Donald Trump, but the Supreme Court is so important to you that you're going to hold your nose and you're going to vote for Donald Trump because you want the justices that the president, because that's one of the president's job is to appoint Supreme Court justices. You're going to vote for Trump because you prefer his appointments to Hillary Clinton's. So the fourth reason the Realist would give for voting for Trump is he's a deal maker, right? And so this is sort of a cornerstone of any large businessman's repertoire, is being able to negotiate a deal. And that's really important right now because it means that he can cut through ideological and partisan lines, which is something that is really, really lacking in American political system right now. Now, you could say that his statements have been so inflammatory that people wouldn't want to work with him even if the things that he said were good. And I understand that, but I still think at the core of who Donald Trump is, he is a deal maker. And because he's kind of a moderate in many ways, there's a lot of areas, there's a lot of room for negotiation. That's actually something that Washington needs. The fifth and final reason why the Realist would give to vote for Donald Trump is this. You are so sick and tired of the political establishment. You're so sick and tired of the corrupt practices in both the Republican and the Democratic Party that you just literally want to see the system kind of be shocked into a new awakening, into a revival. And the only way you think that can be achieved is if you put somebody in power like Donald Trump. So either you put him in power that way because you think he's good and he can actually institute that, or you put him in power because you think he's so shocking that it's going to wake people up, it's going to sober people up and actually get them to rediscover the principles of America, rediscover the principles of negotiation and compromise, and so that the next election we can start to fix what's actually happening. Well, thanks guys, we've made it this far. It's the end of part 1. Consider this an intermission of sorts. We've made it this far. We're going to dive into the rest of it on Wednesday, but until then, remember, reality always trumps ideology.